Okay, so we're going to talk about the Incan Empire. First thing you need to understand is that the Incan Empire is going to be on the western coast of South America. So remember, South America is connected to Central America, but if you look in this orange area here, that's the Incan Empire, and it lasted from 1463 to 1532 CE. What you need to understand is that, first of all, they're going to call this area the Andes region because they have the Andes mountain range. The Incans are going to use the Pacific Ocean to travel, and also they'll go through the Andes Mountains. Now, when we discuss the Andes Mountains, that's going to come into play with the fact that people do not want to cross over mountains. Remember, mountains are a natural barrier. The Incans are also known for their architecture because they have a lot of steppe architecture and agriculture. They use terraced farming, which is similar to the Aztecs. They were also known for building their roads, and they're going to have a network of roads which allows them to trade, and they even pave these roads with stone blocks. And the roads stretch from like sea level to even 12,000 feet above elevation because remember, they are located amongst a mountain range. When we talk about their empire, they will last for a long time, a pretty long time, but they will have some issues. But the first thing we're going to talk about is Incan society. And what you need to understand is that Incan society is going to have warriors, similar to the Aztecs, similar to Greeks, Romans. You have to have warriors. Warriors offer you protection. Women, once again, and I know you guys get so irritated about, but women had to cook, they cleaned, they did weaving of baskets, clothing, they cared for children, they made beer, and they worked in the fields. But they were not trained warriors. They were servant to their husbands, but what we have to remember is that the Incans were a cooperative organization or civilization. But they will have social hierarchies just like any other empire. One thing that you have to understand about Incan politics is that they will have an emperor, and it's a theocracy, which means that it is ruled by religion. It will have quarters, which is ruled by governors. Remember that an emperor cannot be in all the areas that it needs to be at one time. So what they'll do is they take these quarters and they rule them by governors. It's just like the United States. The United States has President Obama, and President Obama cannot be everywhere in our nation at one time. So we have governors which help govern and handle our states, such as the state of North Carolina, the state of Virginia, the state of California, Washington, Oregon. Okay, because President Obama is the head leader of our nation, but he cannot be everywhere at one time. And when we talk about providences in the Incan civilization, a province is just like a state. So it could contain like 10,000 residents, and those are people who reside. Reside means to live in those areas. And when we talk about this, there are many different people who consisted of the Incan Empire. There were not slaves, but there were farmers, there were artisans, and there were also servants. Incan law, they had certain rigmaroles where you had to wear plain clothes. You could not own more goods than you needed. So people were not living a lavish lifestyle in the Incan aspect. They were living within their needs. The lower class had to serve the upper class, and the upper class consisted of a king, government officials, priests, okay? And they lived in Cuzco, which is like the capital. Remember that they're high-ranking members of society. They had good stone houses. They had fine clothes. Very similar to, social classes that we have now. Granted, we're not like living in stone houses, but, there is a social hierarchy, upper and lower class. You can look here, picture. Now, something about the Incas with their empire or with their environment, they had roads, and their roads were made of stone. They are even still in good condition today. The purpose is for transportation, and when we discuss the Incans, they're going to have people who were runners, and they were trained to carry messages and orders to the empire between like certain cities along the roads, and they created a one-way delivery time for each runner. Like you could get it delivered in one day. Okay, so this is like pre-United States Postal Service. This is like one of the original forms of relaying messages. But roads allow for the traveling to go smoother and faster, and transportation to run smoothly. Guys, remember that Rome had roads. All roads led to Rome, as the saying says. Now, when we talk about these areas, all of these areas are Incan territory here, and they run up the coast. And if you see the red line, this single red line, that's Incan Road. So I want you to think that is an expansive roadway. That is many different paths and people being able to travel, communicate, trade at a faster pace. So just take a look at it here. As you can see, the colors dictate the expansion of the empire. And then when we talk about trade, all the regions of the Incan Empire, they shared goods. They had a military. They also had religion. Remember, that military offers you protection, and you need to write that down in your notes. As far as religion was a key element in Incan society. Now, one thing that I want you to understand is that people in the Incan Empire worship local gods. When I say local, that means like designated to their area. But the sun god was the most important god to Incan religion. And the Incans believed that their gods were related to the sun god. And so, once again, you guys have learned this in several empires or several civilizations, that they believe that there's a direct correlation between leadership and being close to the divine and godly powers of their civilization. So mummies of dead kings were kept in Cuzco and worshipped. So this is very similar to the ancient Egyptians that you learned about. And priests performed ceremonies for this god, the sun god, at the main temple in Cuzco. And so these ceremonies often included sacrifices of llamas. I almost said llamas, Lord have mercy. Llamas, cloth, and food. Okay, if you don't know what a llama is, it's like a giant, like, fuzzy animal. Kind of reminds me of like a camel and a horse put together with a mule. But they're furry, and they're very good animals to go up and down mountains. They're very strong, and you can ride on them. And the Incas were not like the Aztecs and the Mayans. They only sacrificed humans on rare occasions. When we talk about their religion, like I said, it's polytheistic. It's based on nature. Inti is the sun god. Viracocha was the creator. Impada is the weather. And like I said, they sacrificed mostly animals like the llamas. As far as the economy goes, the Incans had farming. And I think you've noticed that the Mesoamerican civilizations, they all use farming. They also had terrace, which is like similar to what we talked about with the Aztecs. And if you look at this picture here, you can see they're like steps. And they grew their plants on these stepways here. They also had tribute, which is a form of tax. And the conquered people that were under the Incan Empire had to pay tribute, whether it was with labor or goods. They also had mines, like mines that you go underground and you dig in, and they had gold, silver, and copper. Big achievement is going to be roads. It made every single part of the Incan Empire accessible. Like I told you, you got people who are running messages down these stone roads. Also, it allows for the distribution of wealth. Everybody, due to these roads and communications, had the opportunity to live well economically and have trade, farming, and things like that. The gold and silver is going to come into play with the Incans' fall. And so when we talk about the fall of the Incan Empire, once again, the Spanish, you've heard about the Spanish with the Aztecs, and the Aztec Empire fell because of the Spanish, and the Incan Empire will fall because of the Spanish as well. We have an explorer named Pizarro. Once again, he will kidnap the emperor of the Incan Empire. He will hold him for ransom. He wants gold and silver from the Incans. And let me tell you something about the Incans. The Incans do not value gold in the same sense that Europeans do, and Europeans would be the Spaniards during this time. They use gold for weapons. They wear gold as clothing, and the Spanish know in their world, coming from Europe, that gold is that awesome and amazing form of money that you want to have. And so what's going to happen is that they are going to kill the emperor. They are going to take over the Incans, and once again, it is based off of technology. Who's got the better technology, who is stronger, and in comparison to a spear and a gun, the guns are always going to win. It's just like bringing a knife to a gunfight. You can't do that. And so the Incans had obsolete or elementary or rudimentary or weaker technology than the Spanish, and that's how the Spaniards win.